So now I'd like to invite Tony Flaherty from Natural Resources Management, Adelaide Mount Lofty Ranges. We wouldn't be here today without his support, both in terms of getting the speakers and in terms of I think, having the money to do it. But it has been fantastic. And so Tony's been one of my inspirations from that early time, back in 2004. I first read a paper of his called Integrated Coastal Zone Management, and was introduced to all these wonderful ideas about how we can be more at one with the land, and incorporate all our wonderful science and knowledge as well. So over to you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Peter, and thank you very much for you and the other community groups involved today for asking me to speak. I was hoping to pass it further up the chain, but it got pushed back down to me. But my big boss, Brenton Greer, will be speaking a bit later to sort of pull things together. But what Peter just mentioned is a perfect segue when I was talking to Peter about what you want me to talk about, because my job, it may sound, if you just tick that, and then OK, unfortunately it's some weird version of something. My job sounds fancy. I'm meant to be the manager of coast and marine projects for Natural Resources Adelaide Mount Lofty Ranges. I don't actually manage land. I don't like a park ranger or a senior district ranger or something like that. I basically manage money, and it's your money. So money that's collected through local government as part of the Natural Resources Levy goes to the Natural Resources Management Board, and a bit of that gets divvied out to me to try and coordinate coastal projects and marine projects that have been based on a whole range of different planning documents. And I'm going to be talking a lot of whitefella words now, but we have to recognise the Kaurna planning and knowledge that's gone before. So, you know, it's one of the things that some of these plans have tried to incorporate, but just as in integrated coastal zone management, I'd be harking on back in my non-government days about the need for adaptive management. We need to be not just adaptively managing, but adaptively talking. And that means talking to the people who can help us. There's many names for this, or there are a couple of names for where we're talking about, but I have trouble with Kaurna names, so I'm going to call it the Washpool, I'm sorry. But I want to talk about some of the past planning and some of the current steps that have happened to date. Now, Carl Telfer, who was also going to be here, is a member of the Natural Resource Management Board. He is still, yeah. So again, and Georgina's already welcomed us to country, but so there are other, there are a whole range of community-based ways to engage with NRM, and I take the opportunity to encourage you to really work out what they are and let us help you plan what they are. But we can't talk about the Washpool in isolation. We haven't got a talk here where Andy Thomas is sick, so he can't talk about the hydrology and the stormwater management that's so vital to managing this. But we've got to recognise all of the things in the surrounding area that have influenced the Washpool over the millennia. And I guess that's the other way of thinking about how Kaurna might manage this place differently to all the plans that I'm going to be talking about. The two main plans that are kicking around and have been kicking around for some time that Peter talked about are the Washpool Lagoon Environments Management Plan, and then very shortly after came the Washpool Lagoon Restoration Action Plan, which basically took all the things that might be affordable from this plan and distilled them into some things. But there's still a lot of things that would need negotiation these days. There's also some other bigger picture plans from state government that are still kicking around. One of those is the Coast Park plan that was released in 2001. And that saw the vision of a coastal park basically from Port Adelaide down to Selix as a shared pedestrian and cycleway. And that again, that sounds wonderful, but in many parts that's caused a lot of community anxiety and grief and need for talking. So some of the things that have been done since then are the City of Onkaparinga Coastal Access Plan in trying to look at how some of that access might be done along the coast. But again, none of that's been agreed on. The plan that we're dealing with that came out, that was funded through City of Wangondananko and Planning SA back in 2007 and then released in 2008, really came out of the first sort of detailed hydrological study back in 2003. And that pulled together this stuff, and it was ticking around for a long time, a lot of community pressure that then got the Washpool Action Plan. And the vision of the original management of the Washpool that's in that plan is, you know, dealing with things like the birds, water management and the habitat, but under this umbrella of cultural heritage. And that's a key element of that plan. I'm going to show a lot of words, but just the key things to pick out of that plan, it is about protecting and conserving both the environmental values and the cultural values of the Washpool. But it also has stuff in there about the economic opportunities and recreational opportunities. And where all those things mix, you always get compromise and different opinions. So there's probably still a lot of things to talk through as we go through that. Yeah. And it was based on that hydrological study. So the key two primary things that that plan was originally about were about birds and bird habitat. But as things went through, all these other things were brought in, including cultural, heritage, environment, recreation, until it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's also talking about considering realistic costs. So I don't know how we progress in there. These are like there were 12 actions in that original plan. Note there was no action number 10. I don't know what that was about. But it was really about look, establishing a management group. So you've got a community dialogue, doing the pest, plant and animal control that's needed, getting more data, working out the hydrology better, because that 2003 study was a quick, attempt, and the stuff that's been done has improved things since then. Looking at the weir, how it can be improved or does it need to be improved to keep water in longer. And then it goes on about the recreational opportunities. That's things like pathways, design works, and then the cultural heritage. The cultural heritage is dealt with by saying, let's put more signs in. How do we, I would say, and trails. It's how do we get a living Kaurna presence, similar to the vision that's been done in other areas, like Warraparinga, I would say, into areas like this. That's a personal view. And then stuff like stormwater management planning, revegetation, and then ongoing monitoring. So that's a lot of things to do. All of that was, hang on, where are we? Yeah, so that's quite a lot of things to do. It got distilled again, so it got distilled into a big plan. As Peter just mentioned, the costs anything up to over $4 million at 2007 property values. I have done some calculations to see what that is in real time now, and it's pretty big. It didn't stop me putting in a budget bid, no. So then what got distilled was this other plan that was done by another batch of consultants and contractors that sort of distilled that big budget ticket stuff down to a few other things. And again, it's still talking about birds, it's talking about native plants, it's about improving the connectivity to get that greater Aldinga Washpool Scrub Conservation Park, improving the wetland, but as a public amenity. Again, how do those things, how do you manage those things? And getting the community involvement going. Community involvement is a big social objective, and again, the cultural objectives to retain cultural heritage and Kaurna values. And so there are a whole range of steps that a few years ago, since I came into the Natural Resource Management Board, now part of the Department of Environment, been trying to facilitate through our work that we do with council and other landholders there. So we've started the botanical surveys, and that's the work that Tim Milne and Tim Croft presented on. But there has been a lot of that done previously, but we're just trying to work out how we get to a plan to revegetate and rehabilitate the vegetation of the Washpool. So this would be the next step that with my team, will be looking at over the next year and a half. And a 5-year monitoring program. Quite opportunistically, Peter invited Perry to present about invertebrates. We've been engaging Perry now for the last 8 years to do a monitoring program in the Onkaparinga estuary, which has been very powerful because Perry has brought in that whole lot of knowledge about plankton communities and diatom communities, which has been really valuable in arguing for the environmental flows that are coming down the Onkaparinga River. So we've got to take recognition of the community values, but it's also really important to acknowledge the importance of monitoring the little things that we usually overlook, because they're really important in telling us the big picture story. The other things that are in the action plan, the weir improvements, sort of holding off on that. The weir is actually on Department of Planning, Transport and Infrastructure land, who have their separate engineers, and I've just been holding off until we get information from the Stormwater Management Plan, which should be out for release from Council soon, about what we really need to do. And I'm not an engineer, I got no idea about this, okay? But we need the discussion of the different engineers and hydrologists to work out what's really the best there. There's things still in the action plan about creating island habitat, sedimentation ponds, and they sound good ideas, but they involve breaking ground. They may involve breaking ground in areas that have that historically in the last few decades have been heavily ploughed. So again, that's a discussion. Is this sort of stuff still appropriate? Are the environmental benefits it might provide worthwhile, and should we progress with those? Or do we just look at revegetating as we can, or whatever things need to be done there? Again, okay. Things about relocating embankments that were put there previously, removal of Button Road to really get rid of that road that is breaking up the Washpool, and creating formal walking trails. This linear corridor, feral animal management, and an animal crossing strategy, really to stop roadkill on Norman Road. So all of these things got distilled down, and the costs for all these are coming in just under $500,000 for implementation at 2008 rates. So it jacks it up to about $1 million. So yeah, so that's the things that are in the plan. But these, I think, are still things that need now, that we're in 2017, still need revisiting to see how things have changed, what community attitudes have changed. And that's where all of you come in. So there are a whole lot of things proposed that might be good for some people, but we still need some dialogue about how to progress them. I'll just go through these. The other thing that Peter touched on was all the different tenements. Now, that may sound like a nightmare, but actually, and the management plan identified this, and it's stuff that we've tried to do in places like the Onkaparinga estuary, which is similar batches of government and council tenure, and that if you get enough agreement, it doesn't matter. You can spend money rehabilitating stuff all over that land. It doesn't matter who owns it. You just have to make sure that those people agree to it. And we do that all the time. We're doing it with council, we're doing it with SA Water, we do it with Department of Planning. So that can be done. If you've still got lots of people there, in the short term, the plan identified that, well, maybe that's a good thing because you can leverage bits of money from everyone. It hasn't really worked since this plan was identified. But it can if everyone comes to the table. So the vision is, and Department of Environment has two people working on, sorting out that tenure, looking at what the negotiations are to put it under a single parcel. Now that's still a big body of work that will probably take another year. Sounds like a lot for such a little, but it actually does take a lot of time to negotiate and re-examine all the boundaries and the deeds of agreement and things like that. What are we doing at the moment? Well, bits and pieces, but it's coordinated and it is planned. We have a bigger coastal action plan for the region, and that was worked together with the 12 coastal councils that we work on. So we've been, the natural resource management for since I've had in place coastal officers hosted by local councils. So we have a Metro Coastal Officer, Emma Stevens, who's just gone on maternity leave, had a baby just last week. There's a big task for her her replacement for the next year, Kerry Bartley, to get up to speed on this stuff. But she's working with local council, City of Onkaparinga, to deliver our funding of investment in the Washpool, which between the council and us is about 20 grand a year. And it's really looking at the council priorities, high priority weed control. Council does a lot of work slashing to get rid of fire risk, which is a real big problem around Blue Lagoon, near where the Selix townships are. And we have been revegetating based on woody weed control. So these are sort of the areas, the registered sites have been taken off there. There are the maps that the contractors work around registered sites of Aboriginal significance. So we're working on various areas with council across these parcels. We've been doing the mapping to see, you know, really what the condition has changed since 2008 when work really first started. And also what that latest mapping has done is really pointed out where the threatened plant species are. Previously in 2008 they were there, but they're pretty broadly mapped. So we now have a better idea of some of those key threatened flora communities that we need to work around with regards to weed control. I'm hoping to as I've been focused a lot up north in work we're doing in the northern councils of the Adelaide region. As that project is winding down, our Commonwealth funding is winding up, I'm hoping to take the lessons that we've been doing up there, which over the last 10 years have led to the establishment of the Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary, to try and bring them down here, which I hope would be a lot easier, because we've actually got a really developed coastal community groups to work with down here. And basically over the next few years, make sure we maintain our investment in citizen science projects like the shorebird and beach nesting bird monitoring program that we've put in place across the councils here, and it's good to see many hoodie volunteers today, to keep things going until we get the resources that we need from the different parties to really bring that plan with more consultation into fruition. Okay, thank you.